Hello Tibanian and Tibarnista. Why are you still not subscribed? Remember, subscribe and press the like button. Slavar Tibani.
Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for 4 freaking days, from the 184 to 187th, 26 to 29 of August. Today is the 30th, so it's actually for yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. So as you probably have seen the quick update, there is a massive development where the Ukrainians finally launched their long anticipated Great Kherson Ultimate Uber Super Duper offensive, and it's pretty surprising because we have battles across the entire front line. Before we get to that, let's go to some other things first. So let's start off with pressing the like button and pressing subscribe, and then so the interesting thing on the 29th, which is yesterday, was that the Ukrainians started off the day in their daily report that they ended the sentence with, "The Ukrainian soldiers are firmly on the defensive and are ready for any changes to the operational situation, and the destruction of enemy command posts of various level and ammunition depots continue." So on the day where they launched the Great Super Duper Uber Kherson Offensive, they actually wrote in their report something that I don't remember seeing before, that their soldiers are firmly on the defensive, which is extraordinary weird. And later that night, or that night in Singapore, or the night of Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense came up with a statement, very also out of norm. This is not part of their daily SITREP or daily report. They actually say that Zelensky himself, on direct orders, ordered Ukrainian troops to attack on 3 different directions in Mykolaiv and Kherson region. So, and as a result, so they claim that as a result of the Russian defenses, the Ukrainians suffered heavy losses. So, but of course, both Ministry of Defense tends to like to say that both sides always suffer great losses, which I believe is true. Both sides suffer great losses. And they actually have very specific numbers. They say that 26 Ukrainian tanks, as per this post on the Russian Ministry of Defense Telegram, they say that 26 tanks were destroyed, 23 IFV, and 9 other armored fighting vehicles were destroyed, and then 2 Sukhoi 25 ground support aircraft was destroyed, and over 560 civilians, not civilians, 560 Ukrainian soldiers has been became casualty, put it that way, because casualty can also mean not die, they can also mean just injured and out of action. So they actually taunted the Ukrainians, saying that,
"Oh, another enemy offensive attempt failed miserably."
So probably that's how they talk, but I don't think, not in this accent. That's the very British evil person accent. So maybe,
"Oh, another enemy offensive attempt failed miserably."
So maybe it's something like that. So that's all from this interesting statements that Ukrainians tend to put out almost on a daily basis. So before I move on to the southern front, where we go into the main action, I want to just apologize that I have been really busy for the past over the past weekend, and unable to do the summary. And yesterday, actually, I wanted to do the summary, but because of the Great Super Duper Uber Ukrainian Kherson Offensive, the information kind of seeped through. Of the information of the actions on the 29th seep into the information that was supposedly reporting on the day before's action, and as a result, the intel got kind of like smirched together, and it makes it really confusing if I were to. Because I already entered it into the map, and I cannot don't enter, because if not I will lose track. So I decided to might as well just skip one more day. So which is why it's become a 4-day report. I think I haven't really do a 4-day report before. I think the longest has been 3 days. I think so, or maybe I have. So anyway, so Southern Front. At the Southern Front, the Ukrainians start off the offensive. Okay, so this is for four days. So it might be a little confusing. But the prior to the Great Kherson Super offensive, there wasn't really much action. So there is a lot of icons. They are all bombardments across the 4 days. So it might be a bit confusing. But the main action is still yesterday. So so there is no fighting reported in the Southern Front until the Great Kherson Offensive yesterday. So prior to them starting the offensive, they actually bombarded Kherson-Antonivskiy Bridge-Nova Kakhovka, and they also launched a bombardment on Beryslav, as well as Nova Kakhovka itself, on military facilities as well as the Russian reserves. So this is to actually mess up any reinforcement attempts by the Russians when the main offensive happens in the morning. So the Ukraine, although the Russian Ministry of Defense actually put it that the offense is coming from 3 different directions, which is namely how I also just split up the front: the Mykolaiv Front, Davydiv Brid Front, and the Kryvyi Rih Front. Is actually in details is actually not 3, but actually more than 3. It's actually a multiple battle fronts. On one side, we have a force moving from Lupareve towards Oleksandrivka, and then there's another one attacking at Pravdyne, and there's another force pushing all the way from Posad Pokrovske all the way to Kyselivka. And there is report that for a moment the Ukrainians actually captured Kyselivka, but I think they are unable to actually entrench themselves or something like this. So they when the Russians counter attack, they actually retreated to Soldatke reportedly. So you see, they, according to this piece of information in today by Ryba, they as they summarize the actions at the end of the day on the 29th, they say that the Ukrainian armed forces reaches Kyselivka, and then but they were attacked, and then they actually retreated over to Soldatske. Previously, Soldatske is actually listed as under Russian control, which means that in this great super uber duper offensive, Kherson offensive, they actually captured Soldatske. However, the Russian forces at Pravdyne continue to hold the position. So the fighting continues to go on over there. Just before I move on further, it's interesting that the Russians previously has pushed all the way to the Kherson border with Mykolaiv, just south of Lupareve. And it's interesting to see that the Ukrainians retook all this territory that the Russians had pushed forward, where the Russian Ministry of Defense were pretty happy about. They were celebrating it on their report. Now the Ukrainians seems to have probably taken it back as they are pushed towards Oleksandrivka. But the fighting did not reach Oleksandrivka as far as I understand. You can see bombardments all over the place. Some of the bombardment comes on like 28 reportedly 28 to 29. Some of them is only on the 29. But all this is you have to minus 1 day. So this is actually bombardment on the 28th. This bombardment on the 27th and the 29th. So the date I put behind is the day that I saw the intel. So sometimes it might be a bit confusing. So I do highly recommend you to actually press the link if you really want to know more the exact information. So and in this offensive, halfway through the day, 2 Sukhyi 25 were shot down over Posad Pokrovske, north of Posad Pokrovske, by Barber forces. So very interesting by Barber forces. This is actually by pro-Russian source. This is actually translated by the browser, so I'm not sure why is it called Barber forces. Maybe they cut the hair of the pilot and then the aircraft fall down. Yeah. Then so the Ukrainians actually also attacked Blahodatne. However, it's unclear if they actually captured over Blahodatne, because the Ukrainians on today's report actually reported Russian shelling on Blahodatne. However, we did not receive pro-Russian source or Russian MOD source about Blahodatne over this area, so we cannot reconfirm if this is a capture, but it might be. Given that the Ukrainians able to push all the way to Kyselivka, I believe Blahodatne is likely to have been captured by the Ukrainian forces as well. And there is information that the Ukrainians are gathering the reserves near Blahodatne as well. And so according to pro-Russian source Ryber, they are expecting at a night attack on Blahodatne, or maybe in the area of Blahodatne is expected in over the night time. So I'm not sure, because I don't dare to scroll down the Ryber's information for today's because I don't want to report on that yet, and I don't want to confuse my mind. So I basically stopped reading after I see that they are already starting to report about the actions on the 30th. So that's all from this side. If you move further north of the Mykolaiv Front, there is fighting at this Blahodatne, the other Blahodatne. This Blahodatne was recently captured by the Russian forces around 2 weeks ago, and the Ukrainians launched an counter-offensive against the Russian forces around here. You can see that the Russians has been bombarding all the settlements around Blahodatne, and during the battle, a Mi-8 was shot down. A Ukrainian Mi-8 was shot down as this helicopter was providing air cover. They are using a machine gun to fire at the Russian position. However, unfortunately, this one got shot down. You can see that all the major settlements here has all been bombarded. This one 30 to 29 to 30. So Pravdyne was attacked on yesterday. So these two positions, Performaiske and Pravdyne, was attacked during bombarded during the Kherson super duper offensive. And interestingly, there's no action over at the Dmytivka region. There is a possibility that Dmytivka is under Ukrainian control. This is based on information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, reporting that there's an ammunition depot near Dmytivka getting destroyed by the Russian forces, which is kind of confusing, because we have always known Dmytivka as under Russian control. So this piece of information coming from the Russian Ministry of Defense does confuse people a bit, and nobody cares to talk about it as well. So that's also another bizarre thing. Dmytivka is such a pivotal and strategic location, but yet no one talking about it. The Ukrainians also did not attack it, so the lack of offensive in this region might also suggest that it might be under Ukrainian control, but it's really unsure. However, if you talk about Russian bombardments, if this is under Ukrainian control, then there is actually zero bombardments on Dmytivka. The bombardment always is on Kozachsi, Chevrona, Dolena, as well as Shiroki over here. So you can so this also might suggest this is actually Russian control. So it's actually a no idea kind of situation. Over here at the Davydiv Brid Front. At the Davydiv Brid Front, this is where the Ukrainians have the most success in this first day of the Great Kherson super duper offensive, where the Ukrainians actually captured Lozove. As they launched this massive offensive, the understanding for what happened over at this Davydiv Brid Front was that the Ukrainians started off with a massive artillery bombardment barrage on Russian position. Reportedly, the Russian positions were hit by HIMARS rockets. So that means HIMARS is actually involved in this massive offensive over here at the Davydiv Brid Front, and they have recaptured Lozove. And the Ukrainians did also report that Lozove was under bombardment. Earlier, there was a few days ago, there was a report that the Ukrainians have sent some forces trying to cross the river to start a bridgehead. But however, these forces were destroyed when they were trying to cross. So according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, they say over 130 fighters and 10 pieces of military equipment has been destroyed during this attempted crossing. So this comes a few days before this great super duper Kherson offensive, and the Ukrainians from Andrivka push a distance of 5 to 6 kilometers towards Sukhyi Stavok, and they actually captured Sukhyi Stavok. Sukhyi Stavok is actually a small village over here in the middle of nowhere, not nowhere but a lot of farms, and they managed to capture this position, and reinforcement is already reported being deployed at Sukhyi Stavok, trying to reinforce this position, and probably they're going to use this as a base to continue to push forward. The area here is very flat, so this is artillery country, so it's going to be quite bad fighting around this region. But probably the tanks will be pretty happy to roll around. So all these anti-tank missiles is making tanking not so fun. So and there's also actions over at Davydiv Brid. There is the Ukrainian forces that was reportedly moving towards Davydiv Brid was attacked by artillery, and then they actually did not manage to launch the offensive over at the Davydiv Brid town. There is, however, information that from the pro-Russian source that the Ukrainians actually sent reinforcement from Beryslav over here. They send reinforcement towards Davydiv Brid. According to some sources, they say there is up to 70 units. And in the later report, this partial of this column has been destroyed by the Russian forces, and the forces have withdrawn to a wooded area, wherever the wood is. I can't really see much wood around this region. They actually have to take cover because they were spotted. If the rival can report about it, that means the intel, the operational secrecy, protection is pretty poor. The discipline is really poor that to allow this kind of information has been leaked to the Russian side, and that's why probably the Russian artillery can actually act on them. And however, at the end of the day, these forces is continue to build up over near Davydiv Brid, and probably going to attack in the night attack. We're not sure what's the situation. At least I'm not sure because I haven't gone and read up on the actions on the 30th. So this is ultimately still the summary up to the 29th. So that's all from the Davydiv Brid. There is actually 2 Sukhoi 25 shot down over Zhytomyr Yar. So that's that. Over here at the Kryvyi Rih Front, so this is Kryvyi Rih city, in case you do not know, it's Kryvyi Rih. At the Kryvyi Rih Front, this is also this is the third front that the Russian Ministry of Defense mentioned. So because they mentioned in 3 directions, basically Mykolaiv, Davydiv Brid, and this is the Kryvyi Rih, the third one. In this front, the Ukrainians actually concentrated their offensive towards this heavily entrenched and fortified positions of the Russians, and they attacked in multiple locations. They attacked Lyubimivka, Mykolaiv, and they attacked in the direction near Dobryanka, probably towards Novovoznetsk and Novovoznetsk. Sorry. And there is fighting on near Potomkaine. There is fighting at Vysokopilia as well as Ohaine. So is you can see that it's a massive attack against the Russian forces. And reportedly the fighting at Ohaine is still not over. There's still heavy fighting around this region. So according to the latest information, Ohaine and the Russian forces at Ohaine and Visokopila is on the defensive. They are still trapped within this region because the Ukrainian artillery was bombarding south of this settlement, and they are unable to do retreats. So reportedly, so they are still holding the positions, and there is also, of course, as per the previous information, that the Ukrainian forces is gathering near Visokopila. This is in the same sentence at Davydiv Brid, Blahodatne, and Visokopila. So the situation here is pretty tense for the Russian forces, and we might actually see the fall of Visokopila and Ohaine, given the overwhelming attack by the Ukrainians. For those that are dissing the Great Kherson Super Duper Uber Offensive, an offensive don't happen only in a day. So it happens across multiple days, even weeks. So don't underestimate this Ukrainian offensive. This might actually be pretty serious, given how they are able to gather so much troops around this region despite daily bombardments by the Russians, and they are able to attack across the entire front, and there is no guarantee that they will not try again in those fronts that they have built. They will actually try to push again, as the Russians have to redeploy forces to reinforce weaker fronts. The redeployments might actually weaken certain defenses, and the Ukrainians might actually take advantage of it. And so, especially certain positions that are very vulnerable now, like Visokopila and Ohaine is particularly weak at this moment, and we can also see that for the Ukrainians to actually push all the way to Kyselivka means that this entire highway region is not particularly well defended enough from the Russian side. And they also lost Soldatske, which means that the Russians have to rebuild their defenses over at Mykolaiv. So, and Pravdyne is still holding, but the Oleksandrivka looks like there is not enough Russian troops over there to actually push them out all the way to Lupareve. So there is a lot of things happening in the southern front, and I believe that in tomorrow's summary, where we will cover the 30th one, we probably will see more information of more developments as per how this great super duper uber Kherson offensive goes. And moving on to the Zaporizhzhia region, particularly over at the Enohoda region, as the city of Enohoda and the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. And the Ukrainians have been continuously bombarding Enohoda and the nuclear power plant region. And so from the 27th all the way to the 30th, Enohoda or the Zaporizhzhia or both, Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant or both, were bombarded by Ukrainian artillery. And particularly on the 28th, there is a drone strike attempt where a Ukrainian strike drone were shot down. And on the 29th, which is yesterday, the Ukrainians actually launched 4 drones against the nuclear power plant. All the drones were actually intercepted according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, and one of the drones actually fell on the roof of the special building number 1, which stored US-made nuclear fuel and solid radioactive waste. This is very confusing for me, because how come US-made stuff is over there? The Americans sell nuclear fuel and radioactive waste to Ukraine. I actually no idea why is there this very specific term of US-made. So anyway, the drone attacks has not been very successful. Maybe the artillery might actually work better. However, whatever artillery the Ukrainians are using, the Russians are actually striking back on counter battery operations. So shelling is reported over at Makhanets from the 27th to the 30th, 27, 8, 9, 10. For all 4 days, Makhanets has been shelled. And for Chervono-Hrayhorivka, this one was only shelled yesterday. And Nikopol has been shelled over the past 2 days. So the shelling is mainly by the Russians in an attempt to counter battery or destroy any Ukrainian gathering of troops, or artillery positions or ammo positions. You can see artillery weapons ammunition depot. So there is this artillery battle between the Russian troops at Onohoda region and the Ukrainian troops on the other side of the river. And I think the Russians must be regretting not trying to push for Nikopol and capture the entire western area of the Zaporizhzhia. Understandably, this is actually very hard to defend if they actually push all the way over here, because the entire front line will become very long. Currently, the front line is much shorter because there is a river around here, and the Russians are actually holding the positions from the river to this other river. So this is the front line is only this long, which is probably around 45 kilometers long. But should they actually capture this entire area, the front line may become stupidly long, like twice as long or 3 times as long. So I do understand certain consideration that the Russians are not so keen about taking Nikopol, but having your enemies being just across the river to your nuclear power plant, that doesn't seem very wise to me. So on the Zaporizhzhia line, there is no ground offensive. It's mainly still artillery battles. Mainly is on the Russian side shelling the Ukrainian side, and you can see all the explosion all over the place. There is nothing significant to talk about. So if you are curious about all this bombardment, you can actually visit the map. The information to how to reach the map is in the description below, so do check out the description. There is also other channels by DPA that I highly recommend you to go and subscribe, as I try to build up all these different channels. But the main focus is probably still this one, because this is the biggest one and this is a news channel. So bombardment across the entire front, and over here at the final stop of the Zaporizhzhia line at the Balakliya area, there is no more reports on the fighting at Dmytivka, so I will delete this. In case you're wondering what is this, is just an aerodrome. This is actually a small little airport over here. As you can see here, it's a small little airport. I just want to indicate that maybe it might be useful, I don't know. So and it's mainly bombardments all over the place. The Ukrainians claim Novopil and Novoselka, and we have no idea what the hell is happening around this region. The Russians are just happily holding the position. They are not pushing forward. And we are now at the Donetsk Front. So at the Donetsk Front, there is a fighting reported across the entire of the Voleda line. This is Voleda, the entire road across here. There is fighting reported at Pavlivka on the 28th, and there is at Mykolaiv and at Shevchenko and Novomyolsky. So according to the pro-Russian source Ryba, so this report coming on the 28th probably points to actually fighting on the 27th, and on the 27th, the Russians actually launched major attacks around all this region, including Przystywka, where they are trying to draw attention of the Ukrainian forces towards this direction. So probably a feint of sort, and they are attacking multiple positions around this region, putting pressure on the Ukrainians to actually redeploy more troops towards this direction. Bombardments continue across all this region. The middle finger is still a middle finger. If you're not sure, you can see if this is the fist, and there's a finger come out. It's a middle finger. And fighting continues towards Novomykolaiv. So according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that the Russians waged offensive battle towards Novomykolaiv, but they did not have success over here. Despite that, there is still constant bombardment over Novomykolaiv over the past 4 days. Marinka offensive renewed yesterday, as the Russians actually attacked Marinka. This is coming right after 4 days of continuous airstrikes and bombardment by the Russian side against the Ukrainian position. If you are not aware of, the Russians have claimed control over the 75% of Marinka. They are still trying to capture the final 25%, but behind of all this, there is still pretty much a lot of houses and entrenched positions by the Ukrainians. So it's not going to be particularly easy even to capture this final 25%. Ukrainian bombardments, Ukrainian themselves also continue to bombard multiple locations across the front line. You can see pop, 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 pop. So the Ukrainians are actually also doing their artillery bombardments. It's just not as intense as what the Russians are doing. Offensive towards Nevelsky continues. There is fighting reported near Nevelsky on the 26th, reported on the 27th by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and the next day, Nevelsky has not fell, and the Russians actually tried to push towards the Pervomaisky from Lozove direction, which is Lozove is here. They're trying to push upwards towards Pervomaisky, and but there also seems to have limited success by the Russian side, and however, fighting still arrived at Pervomaisky just the next day, where around 2 days ago, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting in the area of Pervomaisky already, and bombardments continue to rain on Pervomaisky over the past 4 days, and same for Nevelsky is only on the 28th, so 27 attack, 28 shelling. No, so not much is happening over the Nevelsky region. Maybe the Russians are focusing their attack from the Pisky direction towards Pervomaisky. So because the Russians need not actually capture this entire farmland, if they are able to just capture all these towns, as you continue to move through the towns, the Ukrainian forces here will have no choice but to also retreat from their position. So maybe that's the plan now, perhaps, because this farmland region seems to be particularly difficult for the Russians to push through. They have been from Pisky, the junction at Pisky to Nevelsky is just 5 kilometers. This is not particularly far, so you can imagine this push for every 1-2 kilometers it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to crawl through the meters. There is an interesting bombardment reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on Vasily. However, Vasily is Russian controlled, so I'm not exactly sure what they are referring to, or maybe they are referring to the north of the airport, maybe this region perhaps. So there is also fighting reported at Opyne. So according to Ukraine and pro-Russian source Ryaba, they are both reporting units operating towards Opyne. So according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they call this a reconnaissance. So maybe it's just a small force trying to test out the defenses of the Ukrainians to see if they are there. And there is some fighting reported at Dmytivka, but nothing significant to talk about. I think this should be grayed out because it's from the 26th. Kryvyi 29, there is a attempted offense by the Donetsk militia to attack Krasnohorivka. However, they did not really have much success. They gained a foothold on the outskirts, but they are very conservative. They are not willing to push forward to risk their lives. You can see all the artillery battles across this entire New York Holivka region. Then the next active offense actually comes from the north of Holivka at Shumy. There's fighting reported by the Russians against Ukrainian position yesterday, and there is also fighting at Mayos a few days ago, on the reported on the 27th by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry as well. Mayos continue to hold for the Ukrainian, so is Shumy, and that's all from the Donetsk Front. And then we are now into the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, fierce fighting continues at Kodema. The fighting continues to be reported all the way from the 28th to the 30th, which is actually today's report. The Ukraine Defense Ministry continue to report that there's fighting at Kodema. Some pro-Russian sources rumored that Kodema is captured, and however, this information is not accurate, it's not correct. And Ryba actually put out a statement saying that that is a premature information. Then they actually elaborated on the situation at Kodyma. So what happens is that the Russian forces at Kodyma is actually the Wagner private military contractors, the PMCs, and they are actually fighting in this region. Currently, the situation is that the Wagner PMC have captured around half of Kodyma, and however, they are unable to push forward because the Ukrainians actually have numerical superiority over in this region. In fact, most of this war or the front line, the Ukrainians actually have more troops, most of the case, against the Russian side. The Ukrainians consistently have more troops because they actually is in a total war state. So all the mobilization of reserve means that they actually have more troops than the Russian side. So the Wagner PMC are currently stuck at Kodyma. They are unable to really push forward because the defenders on the Ukrainian side is just too numerous. So which is how this is what Ryba have said, which is why the information about Kodyma is captured is wrong. So for those that you say I'm late, no, you're just wrong. Got it. So however, the Russians, you can see that on the 27th to 30th, the entire 4 days, Kodyma is severely bombarded by the Russians in an attempt to try to even the odds. So the situation is still continuing to be very tense over at Kodyma region. The fighting at Zaporizhzhia also continues. This is particularly interesting as the Russians are consistently trying to push Zaporizhzhia. You can see on the 27th to 30th, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry repeatedly reports that the Russians have no success and left, and then then they will stop and then push back, and then they were stopped, and then they were repulsed and retreated. But that also means that the Russians have not really actually left the position. They are continuing to be at the position, trying to push forward, and the Ukrainian defenders are trying their best to hold their position over at Zaporizhzhia. And similarly, the bombardments are similar. All 4 days, artillery bombardments and airstrikes are reported in Zaporizhzhia. So here is another one of the main battlegrounds of this Bakhmut front. There is a random report of fighting near Beryslav, which is kind of weird. So I kind of just put a question mark because it doesn't make sense. And so we are at Bakhmut city, and at the Bakhmut city there is some fighting reported. Mainly, is still talking about the fight. I think it's very low level because I don't think the Russians are planning to push heavily in Bakhmut because they still have not captured Zaporizhzhia, Beryslav Dolina, and they are unable to secure the southern flank. So I believe that the proper offensive towards Bakhmut city will not start until the fall of Beryslav Dolina and Zaporizhzhia. In fact, I would say that even Kodyma. So without the southern flank being secured by the Russian side, I don't think they are feeling comfortable to actually push into Bakhmut, as this will actually run the risk of having a Ukrainian counter-offensive coming from Beryslav Dolina, hooking northward and cut their retreat, and this will be a big disaster for the Russian forces. So this is very, very similar to why a lot of the positions the Russians are not pushing forward, because if they push forward, they might run the risk of getting cut off, and get encircled, which is why there is importance in holding certain positions, despite that you may see that the enemies are looking really weak in that spot, but there's a trap. So if you watch Game of Thrones, you probably will see this scene where Ned Stark actually reprimanded one of his commanders for taking one of the fortress, because the fortress is weakly defended, but Ned Stark do not want to. I think not Ned, is his son, the elder son. I forgot his name already. So one of this Stark don't want to attack because he want to use it as a lure. They just want to siege the city. They don't want to storm the city. So something to that kind of extent, because sometimes it's not always to move forward. Sometimes you just want to hold position because it gives you more strategic advantage. And talking about that, this look like a a chimpanzee or like a gorilla. You know, this is the eyebrow. You know, you can see this is the mouth. Yeah, and then the monkey or the chimp is, or gorilla is actually, you know, or orangutan is actually, you know, looking at Bakhmut and kissing it, or, you know, licking it, or trying to eat it. I don't know. Yeah, it just looks like a, you know, monkey head to me. A chimp, or yeah, I don't know what animal. So anyway, fighting in Bakhmut was totally not reported. And then however, there is some fighting reported at Soledar on the 27th, which means that on the 26th there is some fighting, which means that the Russians are actually holding their positions and not pushing forward over at Soledar. They are only bombarding the Ukrainian positions, as you can see, up to the 28th, which means that they stopped bombarding even on the 27th. So the situation now at Soledar is currently in stalemate. The Russians are unable to push forward, while the Ukrainians can't really do anything as well. They are currently, you know, trapped in this situation here. Bombardments continue to be reported at Blahodatne. These are very deep positions by the Ukrainian side, deep within the Russian controlled areas. And the Russians are not operating any major offensive around this region. And over here at the Mykolaiv Front, and there is bombardment across all the major settlements around here, except Serebrenka. However, we do have an offensive reported at Kryvyi on the 27th of August, which means the attack come around 26th of August, and the offensive failed, and then the Russians never came back. They just continued to bombard. So you can see 27 they report an attack, and then 29, 30 they started bombarding Kryvyi Rih. So currently the little brother here can only spurt artillery shells towards these positions. They can't really do much. So that's all from the Mykolaiv Front. And let's see, did I miss anything? No. Okay, so down to the Izyum Front. At the Izyum, this is Izyum City. This is Izyum City, if you are not aware of. And so this is the entire area here, is the Izyum Front. At the Izyum Front, they're shelling across many positions. Of significance was the fighting reported around two days ago. For the 2 days and 3 days ago, there is a Russian attempt to attack towards Balakliya. However, the assault has not succeeded. So there is still fighting reported around Balakliya area, which definitely invalidates any previous mention of capture of Balakliya, which is also why the rumored capture of Kodema can be wrong, because some of these pro-Russian sources like to, you know, stir up excitement. It's not very different from some of these pro-Ukrainian accounts. They like to, you know, make up certain exciting news that actually does not exist, and or premature news that, you know, that is not accurate. There's fighting reported at Dolena 2 days ago in a pointless reconnaissance by combat. Very interesting use of words by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. So so the pointless reconnaissance did their job. They discovered that the Ukrainians are still there. So that's all I can say. And the Ukrainians actually, you know, had success around this region, and they actually have captured the Mazanivka. This is according to the pro-Russian source Ryba, where they said that the front line is currently on the southern side of Dmytivka. So the southern part of the village is currently in the combat zone, which means that the Ukrainians have already recaptured the entire of Mazanivka, the entire forested area, and they have already pushed forward. And according to to the report on the 28th of August, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the Russians actually tried to attack in the direction of Dmytivka, and which is kind of weird, which means that they suggest that Dmytivka is under, you know, Ukrainian control, half of it. We are not sure. So actually, reflected this information here, which making this a gray zone of sort. Bombardments, however, is also reported on the very same day of this report. So the FMK situation is kind of bizarre. We are not so sure what happened. And in today's report, there is a reported Russian attempt to fight towards the direction of Snaki or Snoki. So Snoki is here. This is Snoki, and it's a really far village to point at. So in this very specific direction, the Russians actually launched an attack, which I indicated around here. So they said it's unsuccessful, and the Russian forces have retreated. So maybe they are skirting around the forest, so they are not moving into the forest. They are trying to go into the open ground. Perhaps that's what's happening. But of course, without holding the forest, it's also still very difficult to actually move around this forest. So the Ukrainians are holding up in very good positions in all this forested area, where the Russians find it really hard to eject these defenders. And we also have information that the Ukrainians have captured Dmytivka, at least since the 26th of August. So on the 26th of August, we reported that Dmytivka received a Russian bombardment. And on a later information around 1-2 days, the pro-Russian source Ryber actually mentioned that the battles are taking place in the outskirts of the village of Kopanki, and the Russians are holding defense on the border of the village and the heights located to the south. So Kopanki is actually here. If you scroll in enough, you will see it. So the Russians are holding the southern part of the point and on the hill. So I believe this is the hilly area, and so which means that the Russians have actually lost possession or control over Dmytivka. And should the fighting be here, means that Ukrainians actually have captured Dmytivka. So another Ukrainian success over here at the Izyum Front. And so the front line here, the Russian front line, has been pushed back as a result of all these changes in the front line. And that's all we have. The rest is just bombardment reports, which is not very significant. There's also a claim of control over Ivanivka on the 28th of August report, where there is a bombardment by the Russians on Ivanivka, reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry, which is kind of weird because it's on the other side of the river. Perhaps the Ukrainians have crossed the river and taken this position without the Russians knowing, because the Russians are unlikely to hold this position strongly, because this is very not important or very out of the way. So should the Russians need to recapture this position, they would need to redeploy troops again from Izyum area, and then try to push Ivanivka. So that is probably another diversionary attack. And so the Russians are seemingly struggling pretty hard around the Izyum front. They are unable to break the numerical advantageous Ukrainian defenders, and the front line is a bit too long for them as well to get some major success. I think the troop deployment over at this area is also probably insufficient to sustain any offensive, given that the Ukrainians are very good at using the geographical terrains to their maximum advantage, as we can see throughout this entire war. So the Russians are still being held in this Izyum front. This front line have not really changed much over the past 3 months, at least 3 to 4 months. So I don't expect things to change anytime soon. Over the Balakliya front, there is no ground offensive, except only some bombardment reports on Pozarivka, as well as on Povomansky around here. So nothing much here at the Balakliya front. And now we are at the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, there is no offensive over here on the eastern side. There's just some bombardments and as Starosautiv, Mazanivka. It's just bombardments here and there. Peremogha has been severely bombarded from the 27th to 29th. They only did not report a bombardment on this location today. Otherwise, this position somehow it has been very, very heavily bombarded. And the Petrivka is another one that is constantly very heavily bombarded by the Russian forces. We do not know why. Maybe there's a lot of Ukrainian troops over there. And Bostrova, so there is a claim over Bostrova, and this claim continues. This Ukrainian claim over Bostrova continues even up to yesterday, where they reported Russian shelling over at Bostrova. So we're not sure. These are probably what some of the pro-Russian sources call the gray zone, where no troops really actually is in that position. Troops come and go, no one stays there. So it might be the kind of place. And then there is a reported reinforcement arrive at Pitomnik. Accordingly, some armored vehicles on the 27th to help to reinforce the defenses around this region, reported by the pro-Russian source, Ryba. And there is a fighting reported at Dmytivka on the 27th, and by the Russian forces, but it was not successful. And given the lack of capture of Dmytivka, yeah, it's proven to be not successful. And there is also fighting reports from today's report, which means the report is actually talking about yesterday, where there's fighting over 4 different locations at Kozacha Lopan, west of Kozacha Lopan. This Kozacha Lopan. So west of Kozacha Lopan, there is also fighting at Vishlishny. Vishlishny is here, and it's fighting in the area of Uri, and also at Norobivka. So there is this is according to the pro-Russian source Ryba. They said that there are battles in the outskirts of these 3 locations, and the Uri one is a separate location, separate report. That is by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, where they say that the Russians are conducting an offensive battle to improve their tactical positions in Uda. So otherwise, the rest are all by the Russian source. And it's unclear this battle is initiated by who. So I just kind of like give 2 of them as Ukrainian ones, because it seems to make sense that it's Ukrainian, because Norobivka and Kozacha Lopan is actually Russians. And so the location mentioned might suggest a Ukrainian offensive. Well, Vishlishny is actually Ukrainian, and to mention battle on the outskirts of Vishlishny might suggest that it's actually a Russian offensive. So that's the situation here at the Kharkiv Front. Otherwise, there's bombardment all over the place. You can see like stars in the sky. So that's all from the report of the 4 days of fighting over at Ukraine war. So without the information from the Great Kherson Super Duper Offensive, it's actually rather quiet overall speaking, until yesterday when everything blew up. So otherwise, as you can see, as we went through all the reports, it's not that big. There's okay, so I missed out this. I just saw this icon. At Mazanivka, the Ukrainian MiG-29 was shot down on the 26th of August. Reported on the 27th. This is by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Yeah, that's all. So yeah, so which means the Ukrainian Air Force is still flying. They probably just kept quiet, because probably they are preparing for this super duper over offensive, and they are trying to reserve their power, which is why we are not seeing much Ukrainian aircraft getting shot down until the one at Mazanivka. So okay, there's another information. So from Slovakia actually reported that they are redrawing 11 of their MiG-29. So they have a fleet of 11 MiG-29s, and they are going to retire them, and they have signed an agreement with Poland and Czech Republic for Polish and Czech Republic Air Force to actually protect their airspace. So this situation will continue until 2024, where there will be a delivery of 14 F-16 to the Slovakian Air Force. So the Slovakia will have no Air Force for the next 2-3 years. And reportedly, this 11 MiG-29 is likely to be transferred over to the Ukrainians. However, this agreement to transfer MiG-29s from Slovakia to Ukraine is not confirmed yet. According to pro-Russian source Ryva, they said that their sources have told them that there is actually only 4 out of the 11 fighters that is actually flyable, and then there's another 12 they are being mothballed, and they can be used for spare parts and components or assemblies, which means that there is probably around 22. So given the Ukrainians super ability to actually refurbish and put old airframes into the sky again, I believe that we are likely to see another at least half. So we have 22, we probably will see 11. Since 12 plus 11 is actually 13, I believe that it's unlikely to have all 23 able to fly. I believe that the Ukrainians is likely to make all the 11 main ones with the help of the spare parts of those mothball ones. I think the Ukrainians should at least have 11 new MiG-29s that they can actually operate in their war effort against the Russian invaders. So this is something quite significant, I guess. So this will help to point us to future situations where we are likely to see more MiG-29s getting shot down over time in Ukrainian airspace. So anyway, this is the summary for the day of 184 to 187 for the 26th to 29th of August. And you can support this channel by subscribing. Those that like to watch this channel, watch the summaries and the reports and all the other news, but you never subscribe, please subscribe, because your subscription helps me to reach new viewers. Because if you do not subscribe, the base will be too small, and the YouTube algorithm doesn't want to spread it to more people. The bigger the base, the more easier for the channel to actually get more viewers to watch the videos. So this is very important for you to subscribe, and please press the like button to help to tell the algorithm you like this video, so that they will actually test this out with more new viewers or existing viewers, to ask them, hey, you want to watch or not? You want to watch or not? See, so handsome. Then maybe they will click. They click, then I get a new viewer. So anyway, please help to press the like button, and I'll see you in the next update.